Well, welcome to our regular council meeting on Thursday, March the 19th, 2026. Start with the adoption of the agenda. Seconder? All in favor? Unanimously. Motion to close the meeting to the public. Councilor Southcott.
Move the council into a closed meeting to discuss matters covered by the community charter under sections 91F law enforcement. If the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under enforcement of an enactment, and section 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations, 1, between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party, and 3, between the municipality and a First Nation or a prescribed Indigenous entity, or between a First Nation or a prescribed Indigenous entity and a third party.
For the seconder, Councilor Plum. All in favor? Passes unanimously. We'll reconvene at 7 p.m. Well, good evening. We'll reconvene our council meeting. Start with acknowledgement that we're holding this on the traditional lands of the Kalama Nation. And just before we get to the public input, I would like to ask our CAO or our CO, given that we have some potential motions that could take 15 minutes to read out, is there an option, or does each motion have to be read out in its entirety?
Thank you, Mayor. If you're referring to item 11.3, when we get to that item, I'd be happy to say a couple of words. Oh, sorry. In terms of yeah, the requirements for readings do not require council member to read the proposed motions in full. They simply need to be identified in terms of the title of the item and the essentials of what the item is about. So that's sufficient in order to constitute a first and second, third reading if it's moved that way.
Thank you very much. That will allow us to get out of here before midnight. So our public input period. So subject to the rules set out, up to 3 members of the public have an opportunity to provide comment for a maximum of 2 minutes on items listed under legislative matters, committee recommendations, or new business. The questions may not be asked about a public hearing where the bylaw has not yet been adopted. Would anybody like to come forward? Please come forward and let us know who you are.
Hello, my name is Susan Young, and I'm here to speak to item 11.3 under new business. And on behalf of the Cathett Pickleball Association, I strongly support the motion to direct staff to negotiate a long-term lease for a pickleball facility at the recreation complex lands. Pickleball may look like a simple sport, but its community impact is not. It delivers real outcomes, better health, stronger social connections, inclusive recreation across generations. Here in the Powell River Cathett region, demand is not theoretical, as we've stated before, it is immediate. And importantly, we still do not have a proper place for youth to play. Pickleball also brings clear potential economic benefits. Tournaments, leagues, regional events attract visitors who support local hotels, restaurants, and businesses, making this not just a recreation investment, but a community economic one as well. Locating this facility, as we mostly agree, at the recreation complex is the most strategic point and choice. It strengthens the site as a true fitness hub, bringing recreation together in one accessible location, increasing participation, and maximizing the value of an existing infrastructure. What does not serve this community is delay. Deferring action to a potential master plan starting in 2027 is not forward-looking. It is a continuation of an action. A similar plan was discussed as far back as 2014 and never completed. Another study will not build another court. So the question becomes, why is a lease so important to the QPA? Because without it, nothing moves forward. We have a full fundraising plan. We have debentures, donations, sponsorships, grants, and financing. But all of it depends on securing a lease. We will not ask the people of this community for support without certainty. General commitment from this council is not enough. A lease is not a risk to the city. It is protection. It creates accountability and opens the door to a true collaboration to create the best solution. Right now, you have a ready, organized, community-supported project. There is ample space at the complex today.
Sorry, we do have a time limit.
Yes, I'm done. What is needed now is not more study. It is a decision. Thank you.
Welcome. Anybody else online? Oh, please come forward.
Thank you. I wasn't planning on talking. I don't have anything prepared, so if I ramble, just cut me off. I wanted to say,
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Michelle Wishart. I'm a frontline harm reduction worker of 15 years, and I wanted to make a statement to oppose the Safe Streets bylaw petition from Prince George. I've been reading studies of this bylaw, the outcomes of this bylaw, and it has not done anything to reduce crime, keep anyone safer. It has only given police an opportunity to move people into more isolated places so they are out of view from the public. I would like to point out, regardless of your feelings about drug use, it is a legitimate disability. It is considered a disability, and it is often comorbid with other disabilities, other illnesses, other marginalizations. The welfare or the disability rate for rent is $500 a month. There isn't $500 a month. Rent does not exist. The homeless crisis is not a moral failing and is not a personal failing. These people are born here. I know them, and I'm just sick of the scapegoating that's been happening with them. And I am very grateful to how supportive and understanding this council has been. So I just wanted to make sure that this opinion was on the record before this was voted on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have one more, either online or in person. Now move to general matters, which is 2 proclamations. So proclamation World Down Syndrome Day. Whereas the city of Powell River and the wider Cathet region is home to a number of citizens with Down syndrome who, with their special and unique characters and personalities, add to the success of diverse communities such as Powell River. And whereas the city of Powell River places great value on the diversity of its demographic, with continuous support for the neurodiverse, mentally and physically handicapped, and disabled and aging citizens. And whereas the city of Powell River recognizes the lasting legacy received from our Down syndrome citizens through our relationships which reach into our community and beyond. Therefore, I, Ron Wasno, Mayor of the City of Powell River, do hereby proclaim March 21st, 2026 as World Down Syndrome Day in the City of Powell River. Second proclamation is the International Purple Day for Epilepsy Awareness. Whereas Purple Day is celebrated on March the 26th annually during Epilepsy Awareness Month to increase the knowledge and understanding of epilepsy in the community. And whereas Purple Day was founded in 2008 by Cassidy Megan, 9-year-old girl from Nova Scotia who wanted people living with epilepsy that they were not alone. And whereas on Purple Day, people in communities around the world are encouraged to wear purple and host events in support of epilepsy awareness. And whereas increasing epilepsy awareness can help the public to recognize common seizure types or to respond with appropriate first aid. And whereas the onset of epilepsy can occur at any stage of life and does not discriminate against age, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic status, geographical location, or sexual orientation. And whereas Purple Day can improve the quality of life of people living with epilepsy, create a society that embraces the beauty of difference, and help us understand how we can all come together to make the world a better place. Therefore, I, Ron Wasno, Mayor of the City of Powell River, do hereby proclaim March 26, 2026 as Purple Day in the City of Powell River. We'll now move to item 9, which is the consent agenda.
I move that the March 19th, 2026 consent agenda be adopted.
Seconded by Councillor Southcott. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. New business. 11.1 is the Audit Planning Communication Report. We have our interim Chief Financial Officer.
Through the chair, I would like to provide a few words of introduction to this report and then leave things over to our auditor, Brian Szabo from BDO, to provide his comments. First of all, as per the community charter, the city must prepare financial statements annually, which are audited and which are accepted by council. Brian Szabo, a partner with BDO, is in attendance and will present the Audit Planning Communication Report for the city's 2025 financial statement audit. Before turning things over to Brian, I'll just highlight a few things related to the report. First of all, the final 2025 financial statements will be available to the public for accountability and transparency purposes, and staff will be available to answer any questions from the public in relation to the statements. The auditor will be available to answer any questions from council in relation to the audit. In terms of the process and the milestones for the audit, of course, the interim audit has already occurred in 2025. The final audit fieldwork is commencing on March 30th of this year, and a meeting with management and BDO will occur early in May, as will a presentation of the final report to Mayor and Council. The release of the audit report on approval of the financial statements by Mayor and Council will be by May 14th of 2026. Now I'll turn things over to Brian.
Thank you very much. I will presume that you've had a chance to read the report, so I'll just cover it at a fairly high level. It's intended to provide you with an overview of the key aspects of our audit, including contacts of the audit team members and an audit timeline that will allow finalization and reporting of the financial statements in accordance with the charter. Pages 6 through 8 cover the auditor's responsibilities, and importantly that the audit is not designed to detect fraud. That is primarily a management and council responsibility. Pages 9 through 11 cover the key audit areas, the areas that we consider to be the risk factors. These are not all of the risks that are present in the financial statement audit, but these are the key risks that are present, along with our approach to addressing those risks. Page 12 indicates our approach to calculating materiality, and that approach is consistent with prior years and consistent with our approach in all local government audits. And page 13 indicates the fact that we are dependent on a firm of actuaries that management engages to calculate the liability associated with employee future benefits. The remainder of the pages are fairly generic, cover our generic approach to audit and our approach to client service, as well as our use of technology in the audit. And the final page, 18, indicates a number of resources that are available on our website to council and management at their pleasure. So I'm happy to respond to any questions.
It would appear that the report would, Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you, Mr. Szabo, for your report. I read through this. It looks quite a bit like last year's. Are there any significant differences from the work that you've done for us in like last year? I know there were changes last year from the previous year.
There would be no changes to the approach. I think the only item that has been added is with respect to the legal matters that are being dealt with that were disclosed in the financial statements last year. As those have not been resolved, they continue to be a risk area in the current year.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll now move to item 11.2, and this was a request that we received from the City of Prince George, requesting signatures in its petition to the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of Canada. Is it possible to put this on the screen? While we're looking for that, just confirming to our corporate officer, there would need to be a motion at council to support the request.
Yes, Your Worship. If you wish to take any kind of action as a council, then someone would have to make a motion to either support the initiative from the City of Prince George or take some other course of action in respect of it.
Thank you. Okay, we have the request from Prince George. Councillor Pomp.
Yes, Your Worship. Do we have any idea at this point how many communities have signed on for this endeavor?
Your CAO, has there been any direct communications with Prince George from your staff?
Your Worship, no, there hasn't been any direct communication.
Second question, Your Worship, and that is the simple ask is to allow this petition to be circulated in the community and signed by community members that want to add their signature to this. I'm going to ask staff, particularly at the complex, could this be simply put in place for people that are entering that building to sign, same as coming to City Hall to do so? The answer is yes. Thank you very much.
I was just going to say it would be dependent on direction provided by council. It's typically not something that we would do. Just wanted to point out that the petition is interesting because the petition is actually notes that it is for we, the undersigned residents of the City of Prince George, and I don't know if that affects the overall validity of the petition if they get people from outside of Prince George to sign it, but just pointing that out for council.
Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you, Mayor. So the petition gets signed by individuals, and I think by this being on our agenda with a link provided, if individual residents wanted to sign, they can, but I don't think it's necessary for us to take any further action.
Councillor Doudt.
Yeah, we're spending a lot of time talking about something where we don't have a motion on the floor. I think if I understand our procedure correctly, if somebody wanted to make a motion, they would have to do it at an upcoming meeting, because we've had discussions before where council isn't making any motions that come directly out of correspondence. It's either put on the agenda or contains a notice of motion. So my point of order is that I think we would be better off waiting until we have such a motion to discuss the motion.
I see no one putting forward a motion, so I think that we can just leave it at that and carry on to 11.3, which is the mayor's reconsideration of defeated motions regarding Cathet Pickleball Association request for city-owned land. I'd like to ask our corporate officer to explain the procedure.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for the, as a reminder to council and as an educational piece for those in the gallery, the matter before us before council at 11.3 is mayor's reconsideration of the motion that was defeated at a previous council meeting with respect to which is set out in the agenda. The process for this under section 131 of the community charter provides that the mayor may, subject to certain conditions, require that council reconsider and vote again on a matter. And the statutory right that's associated with this process dispenses with the first step in the two-step procedure that's outlined in the procedure bylaw. So this is a statutory process. And once I've finished speaking and you call the matter, it will be considered to be opened up and on the floor as if it had not yet been voted upon. And you can take it from there in terms of discussion, debate, and voting again on the matter.
Thank you. So I'd like to comment as to the reason for rescinding. And that is at the ICE-T meeting, which is the meeting dealing with economic development opportunity funding through what's called the Island Coastal Economic Trust. There were a number of mayors that commented to me about the number of different benefits that they have seen with pickleball facilities within their community. And it was a combination of economic as well as social in terms of the benefit of having ages from 6 to 90 able to go out and interact together. From an economic point of view, I dropped the puck on Sunday at the under 13 championships. And the president of the association made the point that this tournament brought over 500 people to Powell River for 5 days, at least. We don't know how many stayed longer. So doing a rough calculation of the amount of money that this brought into our community, it's somewhere between 250,000 and $500,000. Since pickleball is the fastest growing sport in Canada, it's reasonable to assume that given Powell River's long history of hosting championships and tournaments, that we would be a prime location to hold major pickleball tournaments, which would therefore give, again, a significant economic opportunity for those in our city that are providing a range of services. And finally, I had a discussion with Dr. Cam Mahaliak because I had read probably a half a dozen reports on the importance of a sport like pickleball to really reducing mental health issues with individuals in a community. And he also provided a letter of support to council, emphasizing that, yes, there is significant evidence that suggests this. So this was my reason for bringing forth the rescinding motion. So seeing no, oh, Councillor Plum.
Don't see anybody else jumping into the fray at this point, so I'm going to raise my hand. I've got a couple of comments to make in this regard. And just bear with me because this is something near and dear to my heart. When I first came here, I was hired to be a physical education instructor at Ocean View Junior Secondary at the time, way back in 1984. My life has been filled with sport, activity, coaching throughout my time previous to coming here in 84 and throughout my 40 years as a teacher in this district. Before I came here, our teams didn't win very often. Well, I spearheaded that movement. We brought in coaches. We were winning tournaments, championships, provincial honors for a number of years when I was in that capacity for my first 20 years here. And I worked with great dedicated teachers, Carol Lambert, Tony Rice, Ken Hawley, Em Miller. And I was on a ferry most weekends traveling out of this community with a team full, a van full of kids. And I can say without a doubt, in a post-COVID environment, we need more sport in our community for mental health, for health overall. Not only the youth, but for all the people that help build this great city that we live in. And many of them are here tonight. Our seniors should never be overlooked, and they should be honored, and we should be working diligently to provide the type of facilities that help facilitate their health and well-being and longevity. So I am in total support of this facility at least being put on the pedestal with a piece of land that the tremendous volunteer and group that is here tonight would work diligently to see come to fruition down the road, and it won't happen. I was hoping in the short term that there may be a big building come available so more people could play this wonderful game and enjoy all the benefits. That hasn't happened. And council is here revisiting this again. I was sad to see it turn down the first time. And I'm going to say one other thing, Your Worship, please bear with me. We recently went to the regional district and we were asking for them to upgrade their contributions to our recreation complex in the term of their annual funding to support that great facility. And it took some time this term to get them to come forward with last year's donation and come forward and pay up, but they have, and we're working to try to increase that contribution. But at that meeting, I took it upon myself to say, when I was first elected here in the city, there were plans on the shelf for pavement or upgrade to our harbors or our water system that were there when the opportunity for funding came forward. And thank goodness the work had been done. And we were able to access millions of dollars to upgrade those facilities because those plans were in place. Well, I didn't ask for a recreation plan at that meeting in any way to stifle the pickleball movement that is so dear to so many of our citizens' heart at this time. So that's why I'm saying we as a council need to step up, provide them with some certainty in the piece of property that they can at least go out and raise funds to try to build one of these days. And it's not going to happen in any short order. Because if you played pickleball and you have to be sitting on the sideline waiting for a court, that's not a lot of fun. And that's what they're doing right now. When the Safeway facility was open, you could book a time slot, go in there, play for an hour, hour and a half, and not be hindered. But now they're all crammed into, like this place right by my house, which is Ocean View Gym. I walk by there every Saturday morning, and people are in there playing pickleball from 8 o'clock all day long because that's all they've got. And that's not good enough for 300 pickleball players in Powell River. So I'm in total support of this, and I appreciate the mayor, his endeavor to bring this forward again.
Councillor Dowd.
I'm not going to spend a long time talking about this. I voted in favor of this motion the first time it was here. I explained why I was doing it. No reason to change my support for the motion now, and that's what I'll be sticking with.
Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Worship. I really wish there was a motion before us that I could support, because I don't think anyone at this table doesn't support pickleball. It would be insane not to, for all the reasons that we've heard and believe in. But the reason I can't is because the recommendation in the report attached to this item from our staff explains very clearly why this particular location cannot be supported at this moment, maybe in the future. However, after many hours of conversations over the past week and a half or so, seeking to find some way around this so that something could happen positively for the Cathett Pickleball Association, I still did not get to that point. That doesn't mean I don't still firmly believe that there are various other possibilities. So I think we need to keep looking in that direction. And consequently, I can't support this particular resolution, which really makes me very sad, because I absolutely support pickleball.
Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you, Mayor. Similar to Councillor Dowd, don't want to speak long, but haven't received enough new information to change my vote from last time. It's very clear that this is a high popularity sport, that there's a lot of people behind it. It supports health, community, social, economic benefits and outcomes. And it's clear that the recreation complex is the best site in the view of QPA for their growing membership. So all of that holds true. I had a friend who's a senior, who's an avid pickleball player, come up to me after the last vote, quite upset, and just trying to understand why I didn't vote to support this motion. And I think, what I tried to communicate to her is, because of where we are at the time of the age of the recreation complex, the uncertainty that we have about the future of the building, what we're going to have to build instead, or in addition to it in the future to retain recreation as a whole, including the pool and the rinks in our community, the timeliness of financial and governance arrangements with the regional district for the future of the rec complex, anything that potentially hamstrings those long-term plans for recreation as a whole for our community is too high of a risk for me. And so while all of the things about the value of pickleball for community are true, to me, it's at risk of recreation as a whole for our community. I realize there is land around the rec complex, but City of Victoria went through a referendum on a site for one of their rec centers and whether to tear down and build on the same site or build on a different site in order to maintain continuity of recreation in their community. I don't want to be in a situation where we feel like we don't have the choices we have to build the building for the future of recreation in our community, because we made this decision without the building report that's in progress and without a master plan to look at recreation as a whole, because as highly supported as pickleball are, there are a lot of fantastic sports that are highly supported by people of all ages and communities. So pickleball is a huge one, and they're one of many. And so I'm thinking about recreation as a whole for this community, and to me the risk is too high to not have those questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to comment on the responsibility of council, which is strategic, versus the role of staff, which is to provide informed information. And I'm going to draw your attention to the issue of Veyron's proposal of a 40-plus unit apartment building on Franklin. When this came to council, staff had made a recommendation that a significant number of conditionalities be placed on that development. The president of Veyron made it very clear that if those conditions were enacted, it would be economically unfeasible to build that facility. So it was very encouraging that 4 members of council saw that their strategic objective and their responsibilities to be strategic voted in favor of the Veyron proposal going ahead. So as a result of that, we have 42 units for rent in Powell River, and we gain about $20,000 a year in increased revenue. So to me, the decision here is strategic. And when the motion was put forward, it provided the opportunity for a lease agreement to be put in place that could have timing, which would allow a plan to go ahead. And so what that would accomplish is that the Pickleball Association would then have a document that they could use to ensure financing. And so what this means is that we could, not we, because I'm not running for re-election, but council could be sitting here in a year and a half excited about the opening of an 8-court pickleball facility. And that really would be the result of this council making a strategic decision. And we all know, I taught management and economics at the University of Guelph. And strategic thinking was an important part. And we always emphasized that when you're doing strategic work, there is always an upside and a downside. It's not strategic if you don't have to evaluate the pluses and the minuses. So in this case, I believe that the motion is on the floor really emphasizes all of the pluses, and it deals with the issue that the staff have put forward with regard to timing. And the other thing that's important in terms of what would be required from staff, interesting thing about the Pickleball Association is they have a board and membership that includes lawyers, accountants, people that are very familiar in writing, and they could simply draft the lease agreement for review by the city. So this would eliminate any concern that the staff would not be able to allocate the required man hours to get this done. So in summary, I see this as a very positive opportunity for the council to make a strategic decision. Councillor Plum.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Your Worship, that the motion is on the board.
It is. It is on, and it's.
Oh, I just got one last component that I want to speak to on this. And that is, we have a dedicated group of volunteers that are here from the association tonight. That association has a lot of work ahead of them to raise funds in order to put a facility like this in place. If we vote this down tonight, that group of dedicated citizens and volunteers are stuck in the mud with nowhere to go, nowhere to turn, nothing to do. Instead, sit and wait for perhaps something to come available that they can utilize. This, I never asked for a Parks and Rec report to sit on a shelf. I wanted that for funding, but I didn't want it in the way of this group to be able to go out and raise the funds needed for this type of facility. If we pass the motion tonight, that at least gives them a path forward to do their fine work that they would like to do. That's all they're asking here. And that's what the the motion refers to, Your Worship.
Yes, Councillor Armita.
Thank you, Mayor. After we discussed this at our last meeting, whenever this came up a few weeks ago, I went back into our archive of meetings and looked back into the fall of 2024 when the Pickleball Association first started coming to council. This might have been their second presentation at the time. And I watched that video, or at least the presentation that the delegation had done at the time. And there was something that was shared by the CAO at that moment that possibly happened so quickly that it might have easily been overlooked, which is why I wanted to go back and see. The CAO shared at the time that one of the hurdles that the city was facing was that there was no Parks and Recreation Master Plan, and that was on city staff's radar, and that was November 2024. Of course, we all know in 2025, we were short several key positions and staff to be able to bring something like that forward. Now we have filled a lot of those vacancies, and now staff has been able to put that on the agenda, or on the radar, I guess, for 2027. I wish we were in a position, facility-wise, that the complex wasn't at the stage that it was at, or half of our buildings in the city weren't at the stage they were at. I have no problem supporting pickleball as a whole. I have been to many of their community events when I've been able to, and others that I wanted to attend that I couldn't. And I was happy to be part of the pickleball subcommittee that the mayor set up, and stated from the start that the complex wasn't ideal. We were set up to do Timberlane, and due to the QPA's resistance to the facility by Timberlane, that was rejected. That would have been the lease of land that would have got them to the place that is being discussed today, as to working on fundraising. There are other parcels of land in the city that would also be ideal, but due to environmental issues or other issues, we're not able to work with them right now. And so I can't support this right now for the same reason as the complex lands, to be a little bit punny, have some complexity to them. And without having a plan of what that is going to entail in the next 20 years, I wouldn't want to put anything on there yet. And pickleball is talking now, and yes, that facility that they had is now a grocery store. But if we were to put priority of one recreational group over another, we're going to have a few other groups come in to ask for more. You know, softball has 300 members. Minor baseball has 300 members. And Mr. Bretsoff will probably tell you the communications he has with those organizations, with their needs and their demands for more stuff. I'm sure youth soccer is no different. There is no shortage of needs in our community for recreation, and I would love to provide all of them. And in due time, I hope I'm alive and still here to see all that growth happen, because I know it's going to take time. But at this point, without having a plan for that, I don't want to just throw something together and then see what happens in 10 years when we're ready for the next step. I'd rather prepare for it. And I still look for other lands that could be available. Maybe we got parking lots that are sitting there empty, some of them privately owned, where private owners are paying taxes on them. I don't know what those taxes are, but I can imagine a flat piece of land is costing a private owner a few $1,000s, and maybe some sort of partnership can be arranged, because the QPA would get a permissive tax exemption, and the taxes on that land would be no more. Maybe something like that can be arranged. We got to look a little outside the box, but there's been so much focus on the complex site that we need to start looking elsewhere to move forward.
Any further? Okay, I'm going to call the motion. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is defeated. We'll now to 12.1, which is the SOCP and zoning amendments. Oh, just a second. We'll take a 3-minute break.
No, I don't doubt that. Not for lack of support. I have to look at the whole picture.
Okay, we'll move to 12.1, which is the SOCP and zoning amendment 125.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am here this evening to present the proposed amendment bylaws associated with the application to amend the land use designation and zoning of the Benchlands property submitted by Couverton Real Estate, a division of Mosaic Forest Management Corporation. More specifically, the purpose of the report is to present for consideration of first reading amendment bylaws that propose to amend City of Powell River Sustainable Official Community Plan and the city zoning bylaw as they relate to the 111 hectare parcel of land located adjacent to Millennium Park and the city's recreation complex between the Joyce Avenue and Timberlane Avenue corridors. The purpose of this application is to facilitate a multi-decade residential development. Staff presented two reports previously related to the Benchlands application. First was an introduction of the application last July. That staff also sought council's direction as it related to early and ongoing engagement tied to Section 475 local government. The second was presented in November, and its focus was providing a summary of the feedback received from the community as part of the Section 475 engagement. And because of the two prior staff reports, I won't provide much in the way of background, but highlight that these previous reports, as well as my presentation, are available on the city's website. Instead, today, I'm going to focus on the specifics of the recommendations before council and how the applications have changed since that first presentation in July. So starting with the recommendations, first, it is recommended that both the proposed amendment bylaws be read a first time. And it's important to remember that bylaws require 4 readings. And this means that council giving first readings to these bylaws simply gets the ball rolling and should not be understood as any kind of commitment. And in this case, as recommended, first reading of the proposed amendment bylaws are caveat to a list of subject conditions. And what this means is that there are, that while staff are Benchlands curious, we are not yet satisfied with that enough information has been provided for staff to make a confident recommendation to council in support of the application. We need more information. So this is a good opportunity for us to check in and say, hey, this is what's happening, but we need a little bit more. We're interested, but we need more. So staff are recommending that the applicant provide further reports, analysis, details, and commitments. These are split into 2 categories. Further information that should be provided prior to council considering second reading of the bylaws, and further information that should be provided prior to the amendment bylaws being referred to public hearing and consideration of approval. And today I'm going to speak to the first category. So reading directly from the recommendation in the report, prior to council considering second readings, the following 4 areas should be explored more fully. A, proposed infrastructure improvements. The applicant shall, through ongoing discussions with city staff, develop and present to the city for review and consideration a more comprehensive development proposal that, among other things, addresses the timing and scope of all applicable development-related improvements and estimated levels of responsibility for improvements that include, without limitation, upgrades to Manson Avenue, the Joyce at Complex Way intersection, the Joyce at Manson Avenue intersection, and the Artaban sanitary main. B, service and cost analysis and fiscal impact study. The applicant shall prepare and submit to the city for review a future service and cost analysis and fiscal impact study prepared by the by a qualified professional in accordance with the terms of reference approved by the city. The analysis must identify the long-term operating and replacement costs of the infrastructure required to serve the proposed development, as well as the fiscal impact of the proposed development on the city. C, achieving average densities. That staff be directed through ongoing discussions with the applicant to support the development of a refined development proposal that targets an average density of 35 dwelling units per hectare across the site in accordance with the motion passed by Council on July 3rd, 2025. And D, BC Hydro right-of-way. The applicant shall provide further details about their proposal to activate the BC Hydro right-of-way to create a dynamic community space to feature an array of open space opportunities, including all communications between themselves and BC Hydro as it relates to their proposal, and that staff be directed to provide council with a further recommendation following receipt of this information. So that's really the information that staff are seeking, and we're asking for it to be provided prior to council considering second reading. And then the other category that I spoke to were other aspects that we need more information about or we want to complete before the application is referred to public hearing. And I'll just touch on those briefly. They relate to community amenity contribution offers, more information about the proposal as it relates to the privately managed forest lands classification and how they intend to remove the property from that classification. A letter of commitment to the city that outlines the lands that will be dedicated as part of the rezoning application. And those could be lands around Wise, McFall, McGuffey Creek, as well as the Cranberry Field. We're also requesting that a detailed trail network plan be developed, as well as a retention of a qualified professional that would then design a standard of trail systems that would be developed as part of the trail network plan. So those are the recommendations. Now I'm going to move to what is proposed in terms of land use. So starting with the proposed amendments to the Sustainable Official Community Plan, Couverton's application has been further refined since introduction on July 3rd of last year. At that time, their submission proposed only 2 land use designations: urban residential low density and parks, schools, and green space. The refined proposal now includes areas proposed to be designated as urban residential medium density. The resolution council passed on July 3rd, 2025 included a subject condition to facilitate a wider range of housing types permitted in the urban residential low density land use designation through the inclusion of a text amendment into the policy framework to include apartment as an acceptable form of housing. Following further review, making a change such as this would render the urban residential low density and urban residential median density land use designations indecipherable. Couverton has amended their application based on this, as well as some concerns raised at the July 3rd meeting by some members of council about the broader impacts of making a change of this nature, whereby all urban residential low density lands could support zoning that permits apartment style housing. The land use designation of blocks 1 and 3 are now proposed to be urban residential medium density, and this would support the pockets of zoning proposed that permit apartment style housing. And so the image on the screen was also included in the staff report, and I'll just briefly walk you through it. The image under A represents the land use designation of the property as it currently is today. You've got some employment areas of low density urban residential and parks, schools, and green space. B represents what was presented in July, and then C is what the amendment represents now, with again blocks 1 and 3 being proposed as urban residential medium density. As for the zoning of the property, what's proposed is zoning large swaths of the parcel, blocks 1 and 3, from A2, large lot rural, to R2, single and 2 family residential, to CD7, comprehensive development zone 7, and referred to as benchlands. Just as a highlight, block 2, identified on the map on the screen here in green would remain zoned as A2. The CD7 zone is a new zone specific to the Benchlands property and prepared by the applicant in consultation with staff. This new zone proposes two distinct sub-areas, a residential sub-area and a mixed-use sub-area. The first of these, residential sub-area 1, was largely modeled after the existing CD4 zone, but provides the additional permitted use of townhouses. The second sub-area, mixed-use sub-area 2, is intended to support higher density residential uses such as apartment-style housing with small-scale ancillary commercial spaces and services. The proposed commercial activity aligns with the permitted uses in the C3 neighborhood commercial zone that focuses on uses intended to be compatible with adjacent residential use. In terms of the proposed maximum residential density and building height, the mixed-use sub-area 2 aligns with the RM5 zone and permits a floor area ratio of 1.5 for apartment use and a building height of 19.5 meters. And just for reference, that is in keeping with the RM5 zone, as I think I just said. Combined, the two sub-areas are intended to achieve an average density of 35 dwelling units per hectare across the site in accordance with the resolution passed by Council on July 3rd. The remaining lands are proposed to be zoned PK, parks and playing fields, and overlap with Cranberry Field, the natural features of the site including Wise, McFall, and McGuffey Creek corridors. In terms of the overall approach to zoning, staff feel that support can be granted based on the configuration, but more information is required to confirm that the proposal will create a financially resilient development pattern, meaning that the cost to maintain, operate, and replace the infrastructure in perpetuity is a net benefit to the city and not a burden to other taxpayers. The servicing cost analysis and fiscal impact study recommended to be required prior to Council's consideration of second reading of the bylaws will explore this question. So the image on the screen here, also included in the map, shows, again, blocks 1 and 3 being rezoned from A2 to CD7. The two sub-areas, sub-area 1 is the larger of the two, takes up most of the area, and sub-area 2 is the little pockets identified as white on this map. As for the scope and impact of the proposal, in the previous report, staff provided some comparables to consider. The 111 hectare parcel represents an area bigger than the neighborhood of town site and twice the area of Cranberry Lake, and I'm referring to the water body, not the neighborhood. And while the benchlands are an important lands to consider for residential development to support some of the city's housing needs, there are other important, more nuanced aspects to consider. One example is the type or form and density of housing permitted on the land. These types of land use decisions where permissions are granted to allow certain forms of housing to be built, drive infrastructure requirements necessary to serve these homes. These requirements are costly, and this investment can lead to establishing and maintaining unsustainable development patterns and growing infrastructure deficit. Beyond housing, the Benchlands property is also important in terms of providing connectivity for both humans and wildlife. It is adjacent to Millennium Park and the city's recreation complex property and could support the extension of trail networks that would enhance recreation and the quality of life benefits for residents. The natural landscapes, including the creek corridors that transect the property, provide important wildlife corridors and valuable ecosystem services. These overlapping interests of housing, infrastructure, environment, and recreation make the Benchlands application a complex proposal to consider. To summarize, there is merit to supporting a proposal where housing will be achieved in an appropriate type and quantity that aligns with the findings from the most recent Housing Needs Report. Infrastructure will be introduced in a development pattern that is fiscally responsible in terms of long-term operational, maintenance, and replacement costs. Environmentally sensitive areas will be protected through acquisition, and recreational amenities such as the development of a trail network through public green space will be prioritized and provided. So that's where I'm going to leave my presentation. I am here to answer any questions you should have, and I just want to point out Mr. Limshi from Couverton is also present and likely willing to answer any questions if you have any that for the developer. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Worship. This is a pretty thrilling report. It's like a kind of the beginning end of a magnum opus, it seems like. But also because it is to cover such a, or intended to cover such a long time scale of development. So it brings up some unique concerns. However, something that I do feel is addressed amazingly well that I've, as a first time that I've seen it, is the consideration of the long-term cost associated with the whole development, which is something that previous planning and development has failed at, which has resulted in modern North American society, particularly including us here, facing deficits that are extremely serious. So we do not want that to be imposed on future generations. And I really appreciate this approach because it's a significant change that I can imagine is very difficult to conceive of. So the servicing cost analysis that's mentioned in 3B, I'm particularly curious about. Maybe more detail isn't exactly available. I do grasp that densification allows for presumably greater tax revenues that will then compensate for those future costs that were not considered in previous generations that have afflicted us now. But is there anything else you can add to that? I really do appreciate your report. It's thorough and what you've brought to us tonight. I'm just wondering, because this is a fascinating topic, it's something that I have been concerned about for years, right back to 2013 when there was a report that came out based on our asset management plan that we were about $4.5 million behind even back then. That was not acted upon directly. We have fixed things as we've had to, and I feel that our infrastructure department has done an amazing job of keeping our heads above water, although sometimes it's been flowing through our backyards due to the aging infrastructure. So we haven't done what was envisioned back then, although we've compensated pretty well. And I'm just wondering, is there anything else you can add to the explanation that you've already provided here in that regard?
Through the chair to Councillor Southcott, thank you for your comments about the report. I appreciate that. I'll highlight that Appendix H to the report does have some comments in the comment section related to the service and cost analysis and fiscal impact study. Maybe highlight one of the bullets that I think is really important. It's that life cycle and asset replacement obligations to the infrastructure required to serve the development to ensure that assets constructed by the developer do not create unfunded future liabilities. I think it's one thing that's overlooked a lot in our world of infrastructure is that, yes, while the developer builds that infrastructure, the city inherits it, and the city inherits it forever. And so I think that that's what we have to continue. And you touched on asset management, the importance of asset management. This is by far the biggest development that Powell River has considered at one time, and we absolutely need to make sure that it is not going to be a burden for future taxpayers.
Thank you.
Councillor Hazen.
Thank you. I have a number of questions, but I'll limit it to one at a time if we're going to go around circle. So as you just mentioned, this is the largest project that the city has considered at one time. Obviously, you are a professional who stays up to date in your field. I'm wondering, given the scope is beyond what you're used to seeing in this community, what other sources of professionals or information do you rely on to make sure that we're negotiating the best of what's possible, both from the developer, but from the city and our community interest perspective?
Mm-hmm. Through the chair. So this is to Councillor Isaacson. This is the first time myself and in this case the CEO as well as legal counsel have engaged at those early stages. The legal counsel that we initially had with us was not only a lawyer but also a registered planner, and so they were able to bring forward considerations that we wouldn't necessarily have spoken about. I mean, myself, I attend workshops and seminars, and last time I was at the Young Anderson, I was speaking to the director of development or the manager of development for the city of North Van, also experiencing similar sized development applications too. So I mean, those are the types of things that you communicate about. But I think in this case, having the support of the CAO and having the support of legal counsel at the early stages were imperative to ensuring that we could deliver subject conditions that you see before you.
Dout.
First off, I used to live in a place called Logan Lake that was probably smaller. The village itself was probably smaller than this project. So I hear what you're saying when this is probably the biggest development that the planning department in Powell River has ever looked at. So it's obviously more complicated than others. I see that you're, looking at a depth of reporting that is responsive to the people that have come in here to make earlier comments on the project and the worries that citizens have. So I'm glad to see that. And I would like to hear from the developer actually to see how they feel about the requirements that are being placed there. If they're reasonable requirements, if they will get in the way of the project, because I think we need to protect the ability to continue to expand our services as we go, and we can't put the cost of this new development on other people that have already done their building and paid for development costs. So.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us. To answer your question, Your Worship, through the Council, we've had multiple discussions with staff regarding the project and the scope of the project. We understand, yes, it is, from a scale perspective, it is the largest project that the city's has seen. The analogy that I like to use, I should probably introduce myself. Frank Limshu, I'm the manager of planning for Couverdin. My professional background is in planning. I'm a professional planner. I've spent half my 30-year career on the local government side, as well as and the other half in the private sector. So I totally understand and appreciate where staff is coming from, and where the concerns that are raised by council and the community with a project of this size. The analogy that I like to use is, don't get too afraid of the scale. When you're roasting a chicken, it's kind of like roasting a chicken versus roasting a turkey. In the sense that the mechanics of roasting both a chicken and a turkey are pretty much the same. It's just that the turkey is a little bit more larger, it's a little more cumbersome, but at the end of the day, you're still going through the same sort of mechanics of ensuring that the turkeys is cooked the way that you like it, similar to roasting a chicken. We have a similar project that we are currently developing in Campbell River. It's called Jubilee Heights. Similar scale, similar type of project in that it is a master plan project. It includes commercial and a variety of housing types. It includes trails and parks and lands dedicated to the municipality. So this is not a theoretical exercise for us. We do have a template that we follow, and I certainly encourage staff to reach out to the city to ask them how it's been working with Couverdin and the Mosaic team on that project. I think, I know this is fairly long-winded, but I do believe that through our discussions with staff, the approach we're taking is quite fair. It's one of those things where the devil's in the details. And with respect to the economic impact study, we're still in the process of working through the terms of reference for that study. Obviously, we want to make sure that at the end of the day, council's quite comfortable with the project moving forward. Not just for today, but given the lifespan of the project, we want to make sure that it is a success all the way through. I think the fact that the property is owned by Mosaic, our company, our owners do take a long-term view of the asset. And so this is not a proposal whereby we're just simply looking to get the project rezoned. We're actually looking to stay engaged and involved all the way through the end. In the Campbell River example, Jubilee Heights, we are the master developers of that project. We don't build the buildings, but we do put everything in for the end user, the buyers, to build their homes. So we build the roads, we pull the services, water, sewer, drainage. We've built the trails, and we've also implemented a development scheme in that project to ensure that the vision is maintained throughout the site. The buyers of the project appreciate it because what it does is it provides some assurity as to the look and feel of the project being maintained throughout the lifespan of the development. It also maintains the value for those buyers. The city likes it because it takes some of the burden off them in terms of approving designs and whatnot. So if you bought a property from Couverdin in the Jubilee Heights project, basically what would happen is you would have to submit your plans to us first for us to review before you're able to submit building permits. And so that program has been quite successful, and so far, it's a template that we'll continue to follow.
Thank you.
Councillor Plum.
Yeah, through the chair, Worship, welcome to Powell River. It's appreciated to hear from someone in your capacity that's working not only on developing the benchlands, but working on another project in Campbell River. How far along are you on the Campbell River? Are you just starting out similar to where we're at here?
No, the project in Campbell River, it's already had the approvals in terms of the official community plan amendments, the zoning. We're at the subdivision stage. So if you were to go and look at that site today, you'll see that we've built townhomes, single-family dwellings. We've just recently cleared and sold the commercial site for the project. So it's going to be, that particular project involves a neighborhood commercial development, and we've sold to a professional developer who specializes in commercial development. Last thing you want is someone like me going out there and swinging a hammer. And so we've aligned ourselves and partnered, entered into partnerships with folks that are actually experts for those types of developments.
How long ago did you approach Campbell River with your plans for development?
That's a good question. So I started that process. Actually, I think I completed the rezoning approximately 10 years ago, give or take. In that time, there was a number of things happened from an economic perspective. I think the bottom line now is that, we've been able to work with the city and stay involved with the city. I think that's one of the benefits of having the owners that we do involved with the site. We've got the ability to take a long-term approach and stay in the game to ensure that the project starts and completes.
Obviously, from where we're at with this project, one of the big hurdles is downstream infrastructure capacity, all of those issues that we'll be discussing with you. Did you face similar issues over in Campbell River with upgrades to their overall infrastructure?
Yes, we did. And Campbell River staff, we went through the same questions and exercise that we're currently going through with your staff in Powell River. Obviously, we want to make sure that at the end of the day, we're able to bring this project completed all the way through fruition. And we recognize that, yes, there will be upgrades required as we work our way through the program.
Thank you very much.
My comments are, and I appreciated the opportunity to participate in all of the public meetings that you've held here in Powell River in order to get feedback from the community. I also was the coordinator manager of a $100 million water park in Wairau County, northeast of Beijing, which included 150 acres of residential development. And so I have an understanding of the complexity and the importance of commitment of the project team. And so I'd just like to applaud you. I've spent a lot of time going through what you've done since those public meetings. And I tend to be very positive and focus on the opportunities for the city, and I think this has many. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick questions for either one of you. Doesn't matter. I guess I was partially a little confused with a couple of maps there because the first map you showed, Director Gao, had Block 2 as a high, medium density. Or low density, I should say. Yep. And then the next map had Block 2 staying as like A2. So I was a little, wasn't sure which one or if I misread it. And then I was also curious, because you know me, I'm curious, that little green parkland dot that's there that I'm not sure what that is currently, that all of a sudden that's isolated as a park. So.
I'll answer the first couple of questions. So through the chair to Councillor Almeida. So this is the zoning map. And so A2, the green area there will remain A2. And this is a land use designation map. So unfortunately, the colors are a little bit off and might throw you. But essentially here, blocks 1 and 3 are being proposed to be urban residential medium density under C. So different maps showing different information. Does that help, or are you still?
So A2 is not currently, I guess.
The entire property is zoned A2 other than a very small quadrant at the very top there, which is R2. So in terms of zoning, it's other than that central swath, it will be, if supported by council, it would be rezoned to CD7.
I think I got it. Okay, thank you.
And there was another question about the little green dot, and I'm going to ask Mr. Limshu to speak to that because I understand that it's maybe a riparian area, but maybe, yeah.
That's correct. The little round circle is actually a wetland. And so as part of our submission, we did have a qualified environmental professional go out and assess the entire property. And so they've identified in the sort of the light green areas, the riparian zones that need to be protected. And so that's what you're seeing on this map. And the zoning is set up to ensure that those areas are protected.
So Isaac.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the mayor to staff. I'm wondering, as you were in discussions with Mosaic, what else was in the city's favor that maybe we wanted but didn't get to as a part of negotiation? So, for example, like, would it have made sense to ask for wider boundaries around the riparian areas or increased density in certain things? Were there things that, given where you could get to, might have been in the residents' or the city's interest, but were worth negotiating over to get to this proposal? What else, for example, have you heard from residents that we could have wanted if it would have been possible?
To the chair, to Councillor Isaacson. You're correct. There is a process, and I think Mr. Limshu spoke to that as well, that it's a bit of back and forth, working together to kind of find some common ground. There was discussion about wider areas around the riparian areas. And that was something that was not a go for Coubertin. I'd say some of the other details and some of the big details haven't been figured out exactly. I think the privately managed forest piece is a big one because that could have a huge implication for taxation on the cities. So as an example, if some of the lands remain as privately managed forest lands, they will be up to 30 years being held as in a classification that doesn't pay the same tax rate as a a residential tax rate. So I think those are part of the conversations, and we've asked for a more detailed plan. We've also got kind of a broad statement in there about community amenity contributions. And so while there has been some discussion, it hasn't been detailed. I think what staff are interested in doing is really getting the information before council considers second reading. And as Councillor Southcott pointed out, a big piece of that is the infrastructure, understanding the life cycle and asset management component, so that we can say that 35 units per hectare is a reasonable ask across the site.
More questions? Taking my turn.
Last comment for me, Your Worship, and that's for the chair. I've been here for a while. There's others on this council that have been here for a while. This is going to be ongoing for quite some time. I want to just assure you that in the 18 years I've been here, when we've asked developers to work with our staff and come forward and give us the details and all the rest, in the end, we have never turned down a development proposal. I just wanted to assure you, we'll be working with you.
And then Councillor Doak.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the privately managed forest lands, just so the public can get a sense of scale of the taxation difference. Like right now, the land is valued at $133,000, which obviously for a resident would think, wow, that's really undervalued for that land when they're talking about this sort of development. I'm guessing taxation's in the scale of maybe $1,000 a year. If rezoning happens, as this project moves forward, and it's an intention to be competitive with, like you said, other private developers who are not dealing with that privately managed forest land designation, what sort of scale of taxation might we be looking at for block one or the blocks that get zoned differently?
Through the chair, Councillor Isaacson. Yeah, so there's, I mean, I can give you some broad numbers in the research that I've done. What I'm hoping to do is come back before second reading with more information that is a bit more detailed. I can say that it's significant based on the research that we've done, and it's again it's not to condemn. You know, the reality is these are privately managed forest lands. They're held. It's a legitimate way to hold lands. It was harvested. But as we are having the conversation about these lands being removed and becoming built out as a class 1 residential tax class, there are huge financial implications in the difference of however many years these lands remain within the privately managed forest lands classification. So that is something that staff continue to work with the developer on, and we are seeking more information, and they understand it too, because there are financial implications for them. So I think that's, I don't want to give you just a number. I just want to say that it is quite significant, at least from the research that I've done thus far.
So Doak.
I would expect that probably what we would see here is some phased development. There's one section being developed before others. And I'm wondering if that's true, and what the owner's build-out time would be for a really short build-out time expectation, and for a longer term, what your plans are. I think anybody would be a little bit nervous in the world building anything right now, but if your business plan probably has an idea of the time it will take to build it out.
The simple answer with respect to build-out time, it's all dependent on the market. So if there is high market demand, obviously we're going to try and make sure that there's product available to meet that demand. It's very challenging to give an absolute build-out date. A lot of it, like I say, will depend on the market, and will depend on, as we talked about earlier, there's going to have to be upgrades required as we work our way through the various phases. And so the timing around those upgrades, ensuring that they're available when we need them, is something that we're going to be working with the city all the way through this program.
Thank you.
Hey, we have Councillor Isaacson, you have another
Yeah,
question?
more questions. This one is, I have two more questions. One for, and sorry, I've forgotten your name. Frank. One question for you, Frank. You talked about the Jubilee Garden or Jubilee Lands,
It's called Jubilee Heights.
Jubilee Heights near Campbell River, as an example of a successful project that's underway. I'm wondering about, are there other examples of lands that you're going through this process on where maybe you're in a holding pattern or have sold in the past? Like what other processes have you gone through with land holdings that Gooberton has?
If you go on our website today, you'll see that we've got a variety of product type for sale. And they range anywhere from large acreages to the Jubilee Heights type of lots where they're fully serviced with water, sewer, sidewalks, streetlights, all the bells and whistles. This particular site is probably, in terms of staging, it's right behind the Jubilee Heights project. Having said that, we are working in other jurisdictions, putting forward similar types of projects, similar scale, but every community has its own cadence, and some move faster than others. Like I said, a lot of it too is also dependent on the market and the infrastructure and what it'll take to put the pieces together, put the foundation in place, so to speak, in terms of infrastructure to even build that first lot. So we're at various stages up and down the island with respect to all our other holdings is probably the easiest answer.
Thank you so much for coming in and being interested in our investing in our community. I think, and for working with our staff. Appreciate that. And last question for staff is related to the voluntary amenity or the contribution. I'm forgetting the words right now. We don't have a policy for defining what that contribution might look like. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit, mostly to give a sense of community members listening, because this is such a big project, on the size or the scope or the type of contributions that might be on offer or that the city might be interested in. I know sometimes it's like land contribution or cash, land for different purposes, parkland, recreation, affordable housing, those sorts of things. Do you have a sense of where those conversations might go? And I don't want to hamstring you for negotiations if that's a part of it as well, but what sort of scale or even type might you expect to be in conversations about?
The chair to Councillor Isaacson, I'll just speak to the land because I think that's really what we've talked openly with the developer about. I mean, there's been broader conversations about the different types of things that may be on offer. But so I touched on the areas proposed to be park. And so right now we are talking quite openly about the light green area in here being transferred to the city. These contain Wise Creek, McFall Creek, McGuffey Creek, as well as the Cranberry Field you can see up there in the R2 or in the R2 labeled area. So we're talking about land contributions at time of zoning at this stage. Those details need to be further worked out, but the list is broad. It could be a monetary contribution. It could be a way to address affordable housing through the transfer of service lands. There's a number of different things that have been, kind of put on the table lightly, but we will continue to go back and negotiate further through this process.
Thank you.
We have recommendations from.
Worship, if I can ask just one last clarifying question in terms of zoning. With this phased approach that we're talking about and all the unanswered questions that you're going to be working through, will you be looking to rezone the entire property at one time or in stages?
Through the chair to Councillor Palm. So the image on the screen shows the dark green area is the one area of the property that would remain zoned A2. So the applicant has applied to rezone blocks 1 and 3 that are identified on the map here from A2 to CD7.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, we have recommendations from council. Would somebody care to move?
Sir.
Yes.
Sorry, if I may interject, Mayor, my suggestion would be that recommendations 1 and 2 be individually read out. And then dealing with recommendations 3 through 6, they could be all moved together in accordance with what's in the agenda, but 1 and 2 should be separately read out.
Thank you very much. So
I move that City of Pell River Sustainable Official Community Plan Bylaw 2370-2014, Amendment Bylaw 2785-2026, Couverton's Benchlands be read a first time.
discussion. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
I move that City of Pell River Zoning Bylaw 2100-2006, Amendment Bylaw 2786-2026, Couverton's Benchlands be read a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida. All in favor? Passed unanimously.
And I'll look to city staff if I've moved this correctly. I move recommendations 3 through 6 as outlined in the package under SOCP and Zoning Amendment 125, Couverton Real Estate Benchlands proposed amendment bylaws. That's sufficient? Okay.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I'll move to 12.2, which is the 2026 to 30 Financial Plan Bylaw, 2794, 2026.
Through the chair, I would provide a brief overview of the financial plan bylaw. The 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw has been prepared pursuant to the requirements of the community charter and council's direction, including the 8.21% property tax increase for 2026. The financial plan bylaw includes 3 schedules. Schedule A, which is a financial plan summary. Schedule B, which is a capital plan spending and funding summary. And Schedule C, which is a statement of objectives and policies. Schedule B, which is an addition from prior years, provides information related to capital spending by department and function, general water and sewer, and according to the various funding sources. Schedule C is provided in accordance with Section 165 3.1 of the Community Charter, wherein the City of Pell River is required to include in its 5-year financial plan objectives and policies related to the proportion of total revenue that comes from each of the funding sources described in 165.7 of the Community Charter. And it also requires the distribution of property taxes among the property classes, as well as the provision of development potential relief under 198.1 of the Community Charter and the use of permissive tax exemptions. Schedule C reflects updated wording based on budget discussions and the financial mitigation strategies approved by council in relation to the loss of mill taxation revenue and the projected increase in RCMP contract costs. The provision for the development potential relief from taxation is a newer section under the Community Charter, and some wording has been provided in Schedule C to address this topic as required in its very generic language. As council knows, the Community Charter also allows financial plans to be amended by bylaw after adoption. So this financial plan bylaw is now presented for first 3 readings.
Thank you. Any questions before we move to a motion? Councillor Isaacs.
Can move to motion. I move that 2026 to 2030 Financial Plan Bylaw 2794, 2026 be given first, second, and third readings.
By Councillor Almeida. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move to the sewer water user rates and parcel tax bylaws.
Can you
Through
read
the
them?
chair, this is, of course, the restructuring of the sewer and water rates to provide for the long-term sustainability of both of the utilities. So this is now up for adoption as council has given it 3 readings at the previous meeting.
Thank you. Councilor Armita?
I will attempt to read through these without losing my voice. Do we have to go through these individually, I believe, Corporate Officer?
You could move that bylaws 2789 through 2792 as set out in the agenda be adopted.
I move that bylaws 2789 through 2792 as stated in the agenda be adopted.
Southcott? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously.
No.
Mayor, this is the one that I oppose.
Oh,
I've talked about previously. I won't share again why.
all right. We have one opposed. 12.4 is the sanitary sewer and storm drain source control bylaw, 2054. Corporate Officer?
Sorry, this comes before you as a result of reviews that were being undertaken with respect to all of our sanitary sewer and water bylaws. And it was discovered that there was a reference that was incorrect in one of the bylaws as a result of previous changes. So this amendment, this amending bylaw corrects that by referencing the proper bylaw and schedule.
Absolutely doubt.
Yeah, interesting one to read. From my reading, it looks like somewhere along the line we amended a bylaw back in 2005 or something and forgot to put the charges for unloading septic trucks on the list. And my question that comes out of that is, did we actually collect the right amounts for all those sewage drop-offs, or did they get missed?
Through the chair, the rates that were to be charged for trucked waste were always part of a bylaw. It's just that the originating bylaw did not contain the correct reference, and so when people were applying for permits in respect of that trucked waste, they were directed to the correct bylaw and to the correct rates as they have evolved over the years. So rates have always been charged in accordance with a bylaw that was in effect at the time.
Great, thanks.
So we have a recommendation. Somebody care to put forward a motion?
I move that sanitary sewer and storm drain source control bylaw 2054, 2005, amendment bylaw 2795, 2026 be given first, second, third reading.
Secondary, Councilor Almeida. Any further discussion? All in favor? This time the motion passes unanimously. 12.5, the Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaws.
Through the chair, again, I'll provide some introductory remarks regarding these 18 bylaws that are before council for first 3 readings. So the Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaws on the agenda are being presented and recommended for first 3 readings, of which 2 are must-have under the community charter, those being the Land Sale Reserve Fund and the Parkland Acquisition Reserve Fund. So these bylaws are being presented as a result of a previous report to council on the formalization and reorganization of all of the city's reserve funds, which will provide clarity as to the purpose or intent of each of the reserve funds going forward for both the governing bodies of council and staff. The reserve fund reorganization will occur in 3 steps, with the Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaws now being presented as the first step. So the first step would be the readings and adoptions of the new Reserve Fund Establishment Bylaws, The next step would be the transfer of funds from existing reserve funds to the newly established reserves. And this can only occur after year-end balances are known, at which time a transfer bylaw will be presented to council. And the third and final step would be the repealing of the older reserve fund bylaws, which only can occur after all the transfers have occurred. So subsequent to the readings of the establishment bylaws, there will be these two additional steps which will come forward to council to solidify the reorganization of all of the city's reserves.
Thank you. Councilor Armida.
Unless any councillor wishes to remove anything, I can go ahead and review. So,
Your Worship, just one clarifying question for our CFO, and that is, Sport Hall of Fame is something that doesn't happen every year. It's been dormant this term. A lot of the funds that are in that reserve were raised by the hardworking volunteers that put that event on, and it's 2 occasions over the years. So those funds, will they still be available for a Sport Hall of Fame event in the future?
Through the chair, that's the intention of what has been stated in the bylaw. So they are still available. And at some point in the future, if the funds aren't needed, they can, of course, be transferred out via bylaw.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Councilor Armida.
I move that bylaw 2796, 2026 through to bylaw 2813, 2026, as stated in the agenda package, be given first, second, and third reading.
Seconded by Councilor Southcott. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to the Bylaw Enforcement Officer Bylaw 2793 by our corporate officer.
Thank you, Mayor. This bylaw has to do with the establishment of bylaw enforcement officers. And so the way things have evolved in the past, sorry, I'll start again. The establishment of officer positions and their powers and duties and functions must be by bylaw in accordance with Section 146 of the Community Charter. And designation of certain positions as designated municipal bylaw enforcement officers must also be by bylaw. We have a policy 236 that designates certain positions as bylaw enforcement officers, and that really shouldn't happen. It needs to happen by bylaw. And with the passing and the adoption of the proposed bylaw, policy 236 would no longer be needed and should be rescinded. We do have an MTI bylaw, municipal ticketing information bylaw, and it does provide for designations of municipal positions as bylaw enforcement officers, but it's limited to the purposes of enforcing that particular bylaw and does not set out additional powers that bylaw officers ought to have. So this bylaw before you today provides not only designations of positions as bylaw enforcement officers, but also imbues them with powers as set out in provincial and federal law, and provides them with the ability to enforce all of the city's bylaws as set out in the report. That will set up the bylaw department to enforce the city's bylaws either by way of a bylaw notice under the Bylaw Notice Enforcement Act, which will be coming to you soon, as well as under the current municipal ticketing information bylaw, or under the Offense Act by way of a summons. So provides staff with the ability and the flexibility to do what they need to do, regardless of the methodology chosen as appropriate in the circumstances.
Thank you. Any questions before? Yes, Councilor.
Just referencing the background about the goal of bylaw enforcement is not to penalize residents, but to achieve compliance with the city's bylaws through education and awareness. However, it's recognized that in some cases, compliance may require that penalties be issued. And I just want to affirm that in moving this forward, we're not changing that approach. It just provides powers that that should already exist or need to be cleaned up in terms of bylaws, but that the original intention to focus on education and awareness is still generally intended to be the first approach.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Through the chair, that approach does not change under this bylaw. In the course of reviewing the policies, bit of a gap has been identified in terms of really specifically bringing forward a policy that identifies what's council's bylaw enforcement policy. And these kinds of principles and objectives would be brought forward for council's consideration, and that will happen soon as well.
So Almeida.
I move that bylaw enforcement officer bylaw 2793 2026 be given first, second, and third reading, and that council policy 236 bylaw enforcement officers appointment to be rescinded upon the adoption of bylaw enforcement officer bylaw 2793 2026.
Scott. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to 14.1 under committee recommendations, and that's the automatic aid agreement.
Council, Mayor, the reason for the automatic aid agreement is basically a force multiplier. This gives us resources that we need, that the whole region needs, without having to ask for it during an incident, hence the name automatic aid. In simple terms, automatic aid ensures that when 911 is called, the closest and most appropriate resources are dispatched immediately, regardless of jurisdiction. This is different from our current mutual aid system, where additional resources must be requested after crews arrive on scene, which can create delays during the most critical phase of any incident or operation. From an operational perspective, fires are often won or lost within a few minutes. This is basically comes down to physics. Fires double in size every 30 seconds, and that's exponential. So if we're waiting 5 minutes for the resources we need to put the cold stuff on the hot stuff, we're losing the battle. And this is about our homes, our businesses, and in our cities. Basically, this allows us to work safely and effectively. Automatic aid allows us to draw from a larger pool of trained personnel across the region, ensuring the most constant and reliable response. It improves firefighter safety, both physically and psychologically. It reduces fatigue and aligns with current expectations from WorkSafe BC, the Office of the Fire Commissioner, and the NFPA standards. This is not a new concept to the region. We have a long history of working collaboratively with the Tla'amin Nation, the Kiftat Regional District, and all regional fire chiefs have reviewed this concept and proposal and are unanimous in their support. Financially, this approach is cost effective. We already have a mutual aid agreement in place that addresses cost recovery, and automatic aid primarily affects how we deploy resources, not the need for additional investment. In fact, there is no foreseen cost to that at all. Ultimately, emergencies do not respect municipal boundaries. We've heard that 1,000 times, and it's true. This approach ensures that we are providing the best possible service to our firefighters, residents, and supporting our firefighters with resources they need to operate safely and effectively. We're simply asking for direction to begin formal discussions, and we'll return to council with full agreement for your consideration.
Okay, Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you. This is actually a question for corporate office staff because we had a presentation discussion about this at Committee of the Whole. This is an example of something from our Committee of the Whole that I believe was passed unanimously. And I'm wondering if things like this can be put in our consent agenda for things that have come to committee and passed unanimously at committee.
Through the chair, yes, that is, and something that staff will make note of and consider going forward.
Okay, just was curious about that. Thank you very much. No questions for Mr. Swanson. So I'll read the motion. I move that staff be directed to enter into discussions with Columbia Nation and the Cathet Regional District regarding an automatic aid agreement and report back to council with findings and recommendations.
Councillor Amita, all in favor? Thank you very much. Passed unanimously.
Thanks for hanging around.
Okay, we'll move now to 14.2, which is conflict of interest and legal expenses policy 273. And that's referred from the committee of the whole. So I made it.
I believe I can just go ahead and read the motion here. I move that council adopt conflict of interest and legal expenses policy 273 as amended with the following amendments. Add a provision that council can, by resolution, direct staff to seek a legal opinion at section 5.5 and add and information to section 5.4 after facts.
Discussion, Councillor Isaacs.
Yeah, just for the public's information, I think because the phrase conflict of interest is in the title and conflict of interest is a matter of curiosity for and concern for a number of people in our community. I want to be clear that this policy, the purpose of it is to outline if there is concern or curiosity about whether a conflict of interest exists, who pays to get a legal opinion about that conflict of interest and who owns that legal opinion. And so it is distinct from deciding matters of conflict of interest or what happens if a council member feels there's a conflict of interest, but this is about who pays and who owns the legal opinion. And who can decide whether to pursue a legal opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Doat.
And Councillor Isaacson is not wrong. This does talk about who pays and who can ask for a legal opinion, but it goes beyond that. That's not the only change that this does. Currently, if a member of council believes that someone else on council has a conflict of interest, they can use the code of conduct to have an inquiry into that, and to have an inquiry and an investigation happen and get legal advice and go to council, and if necessary, go to the Supreme Court. And all of the costs to the impugned councillor are their own costs. So if I complain about Councillor B, and we have to go through a whole court proceeding, all of the legal costs that Councillor B has for defending themselves, getting legal opinions, and going to court has to be paid for by Councillor B. Currently, and that doesn't change. That's all written down here. It occurs, I think, in this policy about 3 times. But there is a new road that didn't exist before and won't exist without this. And I was curious about it before, and that's why I talked to the corporate officer and the CAO the other day to see if I could clarify what their goal was. Now, in this policy in 4.1, it says a councillor at any time and at their own expense may at the end of it. The other one is, where am I looking at the right one? It's 4.2. If a question as to a possible conflict of interest of a council member is raised to the chief administrator officer, whether by that particular council member or by someone other than that particular council member, and that, according to the CAO and the corporate officer, includes any member of the public. And the corporate officer can do the investigation at the expense of the city, apply for legal opinions at the expense of the city, advise council on what to do about that, and move forward. My concern is that this opens a new route for people to impugn councillors. It transfers the cost from the resident, the citizen, to the city council, and you still have councillors who at the end if they're going to defend themselves, have to dig into their own pockets, or hope that if they're successful in clearing their name at the end, the judge of the final case will award costs to them, which happens. This, this opens up an additional source of expense for the city that we don't have now. We should do that with our eyes clearly open. I've been watching the Sayward City Council, and there are a lot of things are going on, and there's a little bit of dissension on their council. It's a 5-person council. I watched one meeting where one of the people was missing, and every resolution that came up at that short meeting was defeated because there was a tie vote. They couldn't do anything because of the interactions that are going on, and they had so many conflict of interest claims and legal claims against one another that it cost them about 10% of their taxes to just pay for legal claims on internal battles. And I think that we need to be careful about this. I would rather see us think about it a little more. It's not simply saying who will and who won't get their legal fees paid for. It's opening up a whole new route to impugn councillors. I think that's going to have a financial impact on the city, and I think that it's going to have an impact on anyone who in October is running for council, because they're going to have to be prepared to a greater extent to pay for their own legal fees to defend themselves from attack.
Does the CAO have any comment on?
I don't think it changes anything except clarifying who has to pay if a member of the public or someone else was to bring up a conflict of interest outside of one that was covered in the code of conduct, i.e. a staff member and or a member of council. It would need to be addressed. This merely talks about responsibilities associated with paying it. It doesn't change the fact that someone may question someone in regards to a conflict of interest, which, as council is aware, has happened numerous times over the past few years.
Any further discussion, questions? All the motion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 5-1. Now move to public clarification. Mr. Galinsky, do you request any public clarification?
Oh.
Anybody in the audience have any clarifications, questions? Anybody online? Well, this is excellent. We have 3 minutes left. Thank everybody for coming out.
Adjourn quickly, Mayor. Someone might stand up.
Short time.
Woo.